Hello and welcome everybody to our Ingredion webinar on plant-based solutions. I'm Madeleine Forsch, I'm a Senior Technical Service Technologist at Ingredion and I'm your moderator today. So today we will learn about how to create inspiring products in the meat alternative area. And feel free to ask all your questions in the chat box that you can find next to this main window. And we will take these questions after each session. So I will select a few of them and can ask them directly to our experts. And your questions, they will be anonymous unless you are putting your name. This webinar will be available afterwards on demand. So now I would like to show you the agenda for today. So today we will talk about, we will have a market review and talk about opportunities in the plant-based area. We will also show you an ingredient meat alternative consumer study and talk about consumer expectations for meat alternatives. We will talk about key challenges for plant-based formulations and also how you can power up your plant-based solutions and showing ingredient expertise and our solutions for that. And also I'm really excited that we have a live demo today from our culinology team and our chef Kevin will show some live demo in the meat alternative area today. And now I would like to hand over to our presenters of today's webinar. So we have Declan, our strategic marketing manager, savory and plant alternatives, who will take over the marketing part today. And we also have Björn, one of our food technologists, who will take over the more technical part today. And now I'm happy to hand over to you, Declan.
Thanks, Madeleine. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to take a look where the meat alternatives market is today, and then I'll share some insights from an Ingredion consumer study on meat alternatives. So I want to start by taking a look at the growth of the meat alternatives market in Europe, which shows no sign of slowing down. So the retail market size in Europe is projected to grow from about 2 billion euros to just over 3.3 billion euros by 2025. There will be additional growth with the expanding plant-based offerings in the food service channel. So many products, I'll go back one. So moving over to the top 10 countries in Europe, the inside ring you can see is the 2020 value, and the outside ring shows the growth to 2025. So you can see the top countries being the UK, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and France. All of them seeing high growth, especially in the UK, which is projected to have a value over 900 million euros by 2025. So there's been a lot of innovations in meat alternatives during the last 5 years, with over about 6,000 product launches. So the columns here you can see are the top on-pack claims, and the boxes above are the compound annual growths, which gives an indication how these claims are trending. So you can see many products do use the same product claims, such as a lot of them you'll see they'll both use a vegan claim plus a high or source in protein combined with a high source of fiber. So we're seeing a lot of products using, multiple of these claims. And you can see the vegetarian claim here, although it remains high, product launches using a vegetarian claim has reduced the last number of years. It's very interesting to see the prevalence of the plant-based related claim gaining momentum. So this is evident in product positioning we're seeing in the market that are targeting more the flexitarian consumer. So you see the plant-based related claim being more dominant on a lot of packs or on the labels. And this is typically supported by a more subtle vegan claim. So now just taking a snapshot of the evolving landscape for meat alternatives. We're seeing a lot more chicken type alternatives. We're seeing more of these type of bacon, kebab alternatives, which are very interesting products. And now more recently, we're seeing the emergence of more fish alternatives. So I think this is just a start in the expanding of these plant alternative offerings. So I now want to just move on to the Ingredion consumer study I mentioned and share some of these insights with you today. So Ingredion carried out a meat alternative consumer study back in April 2020. So the timing of this study was quite interesting, as we might start to see how COVID may be influencing consumers' purchasing decisions, as it was around that time, within a first month of that. So you can see the countries we're focused on. So it was France, Germany, and the UK, with about 500 participants from each country. So you can see the age group on the graph here across participants, with a large amount of them being between 25 to 44. So typically the millennials generation, with around 17% were between the ages of 18 to 24, and 19% between 45 and 54. So in terms on the right graph, in terms of dietary plan, so 52% classified themselves as flexitarians, 27% were more traditional meat eaters, and 15% were either vegan or flexitarian. And just one interesting comment, every participant had consumed a meat alternative at least once. So the next slide looks at when consumers purchased a meat alternative for the first time. So on the graph on the left, if we just combine the three columns on the right, about 3/4 of participants had purchased a meat alternative more than 3 months prior to the study. So of the remaining participants, 17% purchased a meat alternative for the first time less than a month before the study. So due to the timing, COVID may have had an influence on this, with more consumers starting to reduce their meat intake. So moving to the column on the right, we can see the purchase frequency. So 37% purchasing a meat alternative at least once a week, and also 37% purchasing a meat alternative several times a month. So the majority of our participants were regular consumers of meat alternatives. So now, to understand why consumers are limiting their meat consumption. So I guess the main reasons, I'm sure you're all aware, and it's re-emphasized again here. It's first due to health concerns, so mainly being for overall better health, and the second due to social concerns, so all around animal welfare and the environment. So moving to the right, looking at the reasons to eat meat alternatives. So it's mainly to substitute meat in recipes, or as a source of protein. So you can see below that, taste and texture like meat was next, indicating that consumers want a product that mimics meat. So as we look at the type of traditional meat consumed, so if we just look at the left-hand side on the types of meat products consumed first. So the main meat type was poultry at 96%. This was followed by fish at 87%, and then red meat and pork. So this isn't surprising, as a lot of our participants were flexitarians, 15% were vegan, 52% were flexitarians. So typically these are more health conscious, choosing, leaner or more healthier meats. So moving over to the type of formats of meat alternatives consumed. You can see burger patties and sausages are the main formats consumed. So further down the list are nuggets and deli slice formats, which typically resemble, poultry type products. So this is an interesting insight and highlights a potential imbalance with product offerings for consumers. They likely consumed more burger patty formats due to having a wider selection available to them and more accessible in store. So we know from other studies, consumers have expressed a lack of choice in both poultry and fish alternatives. And this insight stresses the opportunity for more healthier poultry and fish alternatives. So now looking at what the important factors are when selecting a meat alternative. So if we look at this, the top two, there's no surprise, taste and texture are the most important factors. And this is consistent across all three countries we surveyed. Taste and texture came out number 1 and 2 across all the countries. So it's interesting to look further into this, as depending on your target consumer, the taste and texture preferences can be very different. So next on the list is nutritional value. So this is also very important for consumers who, I guess, choosing such products, they're eating less meat and are more health conscious. They're also becoming more aware of Nutri-Score ratings and other front of pack nutrition labels. So nutritional value will remain very important. Moving down the list, many other factors are linked to this nutritional value, such as protein, fat, and sodium levels. Next, what I want to look at is clean label. So clean label had about 69%, and further down, I want to focus on protein type. So I want to dig a bit deeper into these two on my next slide. So although plant-based foods are perceived as healthier, consumers are starting to scrutinize meat alternative labels. The health halo of plant-based foods is starting to be questioned. Consumers are looking at the length of the ingredients, with many considered as being over-processed. So if we look at this clean label clean label graph on the left, in terms of perceptions of clean label, when we look at the graph, it's about no additives or preservatives, an all natural product, real ingredients I can recognize, and about being less processed. So there's always a balance, I guess, with food technology and what's possible to bring a high quality product to the market. But I think it's very important to be very mindful of the area around clean label, and maybe it's an opportunity for you to differentiate your products. So now looking over to the right at protein type. So looking at, what protein preference consumers have in meat alternatives. You can see lentil, chickpea, and pea protein were the top 3 preferred proteins, followed by soy protein. So this was an interesting insight for us, as soy protein is the dominant protein source in meat alternatives today. However, when given the options to consumers, they would prefer a lentil, chickpea, or pea protein. So perhaps maybe they're more well recognized natural ingredients that they're used to seeing or cooking with. So after this, we asked a follow-up question, which is the circle on the bottom right. So we asked if consumers, if they'd be willing to try products containing pea protein. So 89% said yes, they're willing to try products with pea protein. So consumers are very open to trying such ingredients in a meat alternatives. So this concludes some of our insights on our meat alternative consumer study. These are just some of the highlights. So if you did have more questions or want more information on a country level, please feel free to contact me, and my contact details will be at the end of this presentation. So for my final slide, I'd like to give you a high-level view of why Ingredion also believes in pulses and where we are on our plant protein journey. So we have an expanding range based on pulses such as pea, faba bean, lentils, and chickpeas, as well as some ancient grains such as quinoa. There are many good reasons why pulses are earth friendly. They are some of the most water efficient foods. Pulses, they self-fertilize the soil, so we need less nitrogen fertilizers, leading to reduced greenhouse gas emissions. There's also a real need for having more diversified crops for environmental reasons, which will ultimately lead to more diverse plant-based diets for ourselves. So on the top right, you can see this is Ingredion, who has recently opened our brand new pea protein isolate facility in the US. So this is really exciting for us this year. And we've also acquired Ingredion Foods in Canada, which produces a range of pulse concentrates and flours. And we're also launching, you'll see at the end of the presentation, we're launching a range of texture proteins based on pea and faba beans. So lastly, on the bottom right, I just want to introduce our All Life plan. So in 2020, we launched our All Life plan, which really supports our purpose to make life better. So this includes our commitment to sustainably source 100% of our priority crops, such as corn, tapioca, potato, and also peas by 2025. So all of these priority crops make up about 99% of our crop purchases globally. So we'd be more than happy to share more on our All Life plan with you. So if you have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out. So this concludes my section. So Madeline, I'm not sure if there's any questions in the chat, but happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Declan. And yes, we have several questions in the chat box. So some are kind of related, so I'm just kind of summarizing them. So there was two questions on your slide before. The question is like, I see taste and texture as a priority in selecting meat alternatives, but I did not see the price listed there. Was it not an option, or is it not important?
Yeah, it's a good question. So price in the table I showed here and the important factors, price wasn't one of them. But as we dig deeper into our study, questions around price was asked. And I think price does come up when we dig into it. Price is certainly an important factor when selecting a meat alternative. And we see in the market today, the ceiling and the floor for meat alternatives in terms of price it's quite broad. But I think, when you see more and more private label launching products, we're seeing more, let's say, pressure and maybe more price parity versus traditional meat products. So we do have more insights deeper into our study. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And there's also another interesting question. Oh no, I just lost the question. Sorry, I will just try to figure it out again. Then I will take the other one. To which countries or region are all these figures related to?
So I guess in terms of my first few slides, it was focused on Europe. So in terms of the market sizing, that was just focused on Europe, the European market for meat alternatives. And again, in our meat alternative study, it was just focused on the UK, France, and Germany. So we selected, let's say, the top 3 countries that we thought were, the fastest growing for meat alternatives. So, but overall, my slides are mainly just focused on Europe.
Okay, now I found back the interesting question. So it's about regarding to protein. Do you have any information on the perception of protein from insects? Some customers do not perceive soy as ideal.
Good question. I can't answer that question straight away, to be completely honest. In this study and a previous one, we didn't look into insect proteins, but I know we have an atlas study which leads our clean label, and I'm not sure of insect proteins, but what I'll do is I can pick it up, and if that person, I don't know if you know who it is, if they could contact me, we can look more into that.
Yes, and I think we have some time left, so we have some more questions. Another question is, was any research carried out on the perception of protein isolates?
So not on protein isolates, because I guess it's when we look at product labels, it's not always easy to know, when is a protein isolate used, when is, a protein concentrate used, because a lot of the time, if it's textured, if it's rehydrated, a lot of the time a pea protein might just be labeled as a pea protein. So I think on labels, it's very hard to differentiate what ingredient is actually used if it is an isolate. So in our consumer studies, I guess it's difficult for consumers to really know then. So I guess in short, no is the answer. We haven't looked into consumers' perceptions of specifically isolates.
Okay, thank you. And I think there are some more questions. There was something on the texturized protein, so I will come to this later. And also on samples, for sure you can always request samples.
Yes.
I don't know if we would want to take one more question, maybe?
Sure, yeah. Answers.
So I just read this one. In US markets, in terms of raw materials, of raw plant materials, are there issues with product consistency in terms of quality or supply availability?
What was, I missed the first in terms of
yeah, it's I think in US markets, in terms of raw plant materials, are there issues with product consistency in terms of quality and supply availability?
Okay, yeah, I guess it's more around questions of supply and concerns around supply, because I guess there is concerns as, this trend continues. If, a lot of the leading brands like Beyond Meat, a lot of these are using pea protein, so there are some concerns. I guess from an Ingredion point of view, we and in terms of our forecast demands, we don't see any major, supply constraints on our side. And let's say the likes of Ingredion Foods, it's in the region, it's right beside the grown region for all our pulses. And from what I've heard recently, there's no supply issues. That's in the short term, but I guess we do have to monitor this as the demand increases and the speed. So it needs to filter back that enough crops are grown, and I guess we do have a whole team of sourcing working with the farmers that it's all forecasted back that there needs to be more pulses, etc. grown.
Thank you, Declan. I think yes. So I think that was the last question. Thank you for answering all the questions. And now I would like to hand over to Björn.
Thanks a lot, Madeline. And yeah, welcome everybody. And I wish you a wonderful afternoon. With that, we are now coming to the more technical part of this webinar, which is all about how to overcome the challenges people are facing when developing meat alternatives as such, or plant-based ready meals. Let's start with what Ingredion can offer. Our main capabilities are, of course, our facilities or pilot plant facilities that we can offer that you can use. The equipment, process, and ingredient knowledge that we have. And on top of that, we can offer our customers support with starting with consumer insights. So we are doing an intense market and consumer research to understand the needs and drivers in the meat alternative space, as you've also just heard from my colleague Declan. It's about culinology, our team of chefs, and we have a team of chefs globally all over the world. We have not only food technologists, but also chefs in our NPD teams. They can work together with your NPD teams or your chefs to develop high quality concepts. We are offering sensory mapping, and we're doing a lot of that. So our sensory scientists globally are working with customers to get the sensory attributes right. And finally, it's about rapid prototyping. So work with our technologists and chefs at our Hamburg and Manchester pilot plant facilities and culinary kitchen to quickly develop great tasting prototypes answering your needs on meat alternatives or plant-based ready meals. So I just mentioned meat alternatives quite a lot, but which technologies are we actually talking when we think about meat alternatives? Probably the largest market within the meat alternative sector is based on wet or dry extruded plant proteins to produce minced or also processed meat alternatives. Then we have the fermentation-based products from yeast or mycoprotein, as well as the products which are not similar to meat, which don't try to be similar to meat. Their intent is to replace the piece of meat as a main part in the meal, more like tempeh or tofu. And then finally, but out of scope of the plant-based products, are the animal cell-based products, but they're also in a wider range. You can also call them as meat alternatives. At Ingredion, we currently focus our concepts mainly made on dry extruded products, also utilizing our own plant-based proteins, as you've just heard, and also our own texturates, which is something brand new to Ingredion. But we also have customers using our products in wet extrusion or even in 3D printing, but there the knowledge is more externally. Coming now to the challenges we or you are typically facing when developing meat alternatives. And so we took, as you can see here from the picture, that's a model system for a plant-based burger. So what are these challenges? First, what we hear from our customers and also consumers is that often the products tend to be too dry or crumbly. They're lacking succulence, the binding isn't right, or they are sometimes the free source stability isn't good. Second, we need to achieve with this kind of products a meat-like texture. That's what consumers normally are looking for. But often there is a need for a firmer bite, and more chewiness combined with a better sliceability and gelling is needed. The next challenge is flavor and color, also something which is very important to customers and consumers. Plant proteins often have a specific off taste. So a pea protein tastes like pea protein, and that means that sometimes also the final product has a specific taste, a little bit like pea. So that can be a challenge. And also the plant proteins very often bring a brownish or yellowish color with it, which makes it difficult or more challenging, let's say, to produce fish or chicken alternatives. And then compared to meat products, people are very often missing the color changes during cooking, which is something that more and more people are looking after. And you can also see the first meat alternatives products on the market who are really changing color during frying or cooking. Nutrition is the next challenge. Meat products are generally very high in protein, vegan products usually not. On top, you find a high content of salt or saturated fats and long ingredient list, which are perceived as unhealthy by consumers. Finally, processing and application knowledge is another challenge. Especially traditional meat companies know their processes very well, but a lot of the ingredients and how they interact are unknown. It is a challenge to achieve the right viscosity prior and after cooking, and also to keep the stickiness in range. That can be in the packaging, but also during the processing step when these products are produced and packed, for example, or cooked, transported. So overall, you can see that just thinking about something like a vegan burger patty, like in this case, there are lots and lots of challenges which needs to be considered when looking into the production of meat alternatives. But how can Ingredion help you to overcome the challenges? Starting again with the succulence, juiciness issue. We are working with our Simplistica range of tailored food systems of starches, flours, fibers, hydrocolloids for water holding, texture, binding, emulsification, depending on what is needed. Then we have our innovation range of clean and simple starches for water holding and free sauce stability, and also our Homecraft range of functional flours for opacity, flavor, and binding. Always answering the specific needs you have, and we can combine them as needed. With regards to the meat-like texture, we have to offer our brand new VitaSense text range. The text rates mentioned before by Declan, and you will also hear later on to be mentioned by Madeleine. So it's a new range of text-rated pea and faba bean proteins as a base structure material, and we combine them with our VitaSense Pulse range of Pulse protein isolates and concentrates. These are more than for the binding, emulsification, also the cohesiveness. Regarding the topic of flavor and color, we combine our experience to create great tasting concepts and masking of flavors, and the cooperation we have with leading flavor and color houses. In terms of nutrition, our protein products offer a high protein content. To answer this challenge already, also they are very low in salt levels, which is not always a given. And we have experience in developing recipes with low saturated fat levels. And then all of that combined with processing and ingredient expertise by our dedicated technique savory team that can help you to, for example, optimize the order of addition or the hydration ratio. The hydration ratio and time is a very important topic we realized when comparing different text rates from different base materials. So you can see with regards to the challenges mentioned before, we can help you together with you to develop great tasting prototypes and to overcome these when formulating meat alternatives. Summarized, the right ingredient solution is really needed, and we can offer you ingredients to solve these challenges, starting from the texturized pea or faba bean proteins as a base matrix. Then we have the plant-based proteins, isolates and concentrates for texture, color and flavor, starches and flours for binding and free sauce stability, as well as tailored food systems, including hydrocolloids, for enhanced mouthfeel, juiciness, and texture. So you get the full range of products to achieve the perfect texture from one hand, combined with all our expertise, both to answer consumer demands and manufacturing challenges. Now I want to give you some examples where we use this expertise I've just talked about. We have developed a wide range of application concepts utilizing our ingredient portfolio to showcase the functionality our products bring to get great tasting vegan meat alternatives and ready meals. And you can see three examples on this slide. Starting on the left hand with a pea-based burger, and here in a product like this vegan burger, we are utilizing Vitasense Texture 101, which is a pea texturate, as a base matrix, base material which is really then replacing the minced meat in there. And we are combining this with Simplifica MA, a food system that provides the right binding and chewiness together with a high protein claim. Then related to vegan ready meals is the concept of the vegan lasagna. The lasagna can use the same texturate. We use here the pea texturate as a minced meat replacer. And then in a lasagna, you usually also have the bechamel and bolognese sauce here. So here we have a meat and milk-free version, which where the sauces contain Ovation Prima 600, which is a pre-gel mice starch, together with Homecraft Grade 865, a high-functional rice flour, and Ovation Indulge 2920, a co-texturizer based on mice starch, to get the viscosity and mouthfeel which consumers expect. And the third concept on this overview is the pulse-based nugget, another example where you can use our texturates and the Simplifica food system for meat-like texture, firmness, and chewiness. Where I was talking on the last couple of slides about vegan burger or pea-based vegan burger, here is an example of to show you an overview of what our sensory team does. You can see here a map where each of the points you can see on the map represents a British or German vegan burger from the retail market. And what is important here to understand is that there is not one texture you find for vegan burgers, but several. They are all more or less successful in the market, let's say, but you can see we even mapped a real meat burger. That's the little co-sign here on the map. So that's a real meat burger. And to be honest, none of them is a match. Doesn't matter if the products are successful or not. It's just that the textures are generally different, and that's something that consumers are also accepting. So when developing meat alternatives, you always have to specify what is your target. Also, when you and our teams are working together, we have to better understand in which direction you want to develop. To go into a little bit more into detail here, the products you can find here on the x-axis are mainly differentiated along the lines of moist, juicy, oily, and more fibrous patties. These are the products more to the right-hand side, versus drier, less fibrous patties that are more mouth-coating, the products to the left-hand side. Where on the y-axis, the burger patties are further differing mainly regarding bite and chew characteristics, having springier and harder patties to the top versus softer patties with more cohesive chew and a more greasy coating to the bottom. So finally, the understanding the texture space like this, together with knowing the ingredient functionality and interaction, we can help you to choose the right combination to achieve the texture you desire. And that was actually my last slide. And with that, now we have time to take some questions. Madeleine, do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Björn. Yes, we have several questions, and I think we don't have time to answer them all, but I will just pick a few. So there was one question, it's about what about the shelf life of vegan meat alternatives compared to meat? Is additional extra preservative or antioxidants needed?
That's a very good question. With a lot of these products, you do have a higher water content than what you see in meat products. That's correct. We did a couple of tests to compare the shelf life, and at least with our products, and I'm not talking for the whole industry here, so it's just with recipes that we are developing at the moment. In our recipes, we didn't use any antioxidants or preservatives.
Thank you, Björn. And maybe one other question. So there was a comment like you presented interesting products. Thank you. And what is your current offer? So do you offer a comprehensive, complete products, or do you offer individual building units that everyone can customize?
Straightforward question, not so easy to answer. So obviously, for those who know Ingredion, we have a huge range of single ingredient products, but we also have, and that's relatively new for Ingredion, our food system range. So I would say it depends a little bit on what is desired. What is your question? So if you are looking for, let's say, something that you need to increase the juiciness, the moistness of your product, we are very likely to offer you a single ingredient, a starch, or even a potato fiber, something like that. If your request is more complex, then it can well be that the best solution for you in this case could be a food system. So there is not one answer to it. I think the good thing is we have both possibilities with our portfolio. And yeah, I hope that this answers this a little bit.
Thank you, Björn. Yeah, I think we don't have time for any other question, but please feel free to come back to us later. So now I would like to hand over to Kevin in our Idea Lab kitchen for the live demo.
Hi, thank you, Madeline. Welcome to our Ingredion Idea Labs Culinology Center in Hamburg. And as we've been speaking about today, it's all about meat alternatives. And what we're going to show you in this little short demo is how quick and simple it is to create a vegan meat alternative burger using the Vitessence Text pea protein and one of our new food system solutions. So first of all, what we're going to do is hydrate the pea protein. I'm going to do this into a bag and then with some water. Nice and simple. We'll give that a quick shake and we'll leave it for around 5 minutes. So that the water hydrates that pea protein. As that doesn't really make for a great demo, here's one I made earlier. I'm just going to add this to a mixer with some onions. And we'll start this mixing very gently for around 30 seconds. Now, as that's mixing together, we'll start to make our dry powders and mix those together. So we have some flavor, some beef patty burger flavor. We have some salt and some spices. And we have our Simplistica MA solution. This is an all-in-one solution that will bring the binding of the water, the firmness when cooking, and it also increases the protein content. So we just shake this together so it's all nice and homogeneous. And then we'll add that to our base. We'll let that mixed together homogeneously. Then we will take some water. We've also got in here a bit of vinegar and some colour. We'll add that. As we start to hydrate the functional ingredients that are in there, and that will start to bind together. So as you can see now, it's starting to bind together very well. It's not very sticky. You can see it coming away from the sides quite well. It's turned a beautiful meat-like colour. So we'll keep that going for around a minute. Then we come to another important aspect of the burger, is the fat. Yeah, we want to make sure it's nice and juicy and nice and lubricity. We're going to add our fat, just some melted coconut fat to the mix. And we're also going to add some flaked fat. What that will do, upon cooking, they'll create little pockets of air that will then melt and allow the heat transfer to get through this burger very well, which will help with the colour change. So, as you can see, this burger mix, nicely mixed together, not sticky. It can now be chilled and weighed out, ready for shaping. And again, here's some we've had earlier. So we've got some burgers that have been shaped, chilled. These have been frozen and then defrosted. We're going to start the cooking process. So you can see it's got a nice sizzle. You can start to hear that. Now, while those burgers are cooking, we're going to start to build our burger buns. So here we've got some beautiful burger buns. Now, what would you like to have with your burger? Obviously, everyone likes to have a bit of ketchup. So here we have some sugar reduced ketchup using one of our sugar reduction products called Arista. And put this on the bottom. It's got a beautiful shine, low in sugar. We're going to put our salad garnish. So a little bit of lettuce. You can see if you look at the burgers now, it's beautiful sizzling. I don't know if you guys, it's a shame you can't smell this because we're starting to get some really nice smelling roast aromas coming through. Then we'll add some tomato. We'll add another leaf of salad here. So it's nice and healthy. Add some tomato. And we'll have some red onion. And it's truly a shame that you can't smell the aromas that are coming off these burgers right now. And we'll just give them a quick flip. As you can see, the colour has started to change. It's gone from a beautiful red meat colour to a more brown, nice and meat-like. And it's all well stuck together as well. It's not falling apart. It's not crumbly. It's very compact. Okay. So while those burgers are finishing off on one side, on a plant-based burger as well, people would like to have some mayonnaise. So here we've made a vegan mayonnaise using our M Creamer 2230 and Ultratex 2131. It's a great option for plant-based mayonnaises. So while we're just waiting for those burgers to just finish off nicely, we've got the Simplistica range in there. So that's a nice system which binds the product together. It adds firmness when it's hot. We've increased the protein as well, and it's also really well functionalized when we're mixing together the meat patty as well. So let's just give that 30 seconds. So you can see the color change. fully stick well together. And you can see the juice coming out of that, the beautiful meat-like juice. Put the lid on the top. And just to see that cooked all the way through. See, beautiful meat-free burger based on pea protein. And that's everything. Thank you. Madeline, back to you.
Thank you, Kevin. They look really great and tasty. So thank you for the great demonstration. And yes, I could see in the chat there are a lot of questions for Kevin. So unfortunately, we don't have time to take them, but please use our contact us button below on this page so you can directly contact us. And now I'm coming to the key takeaways for today. So what did we learn today? So we learned about that plant-based eating is moving from a trend to a food revolution status. We also learned that there's a steady growth of meat alternative product launches in Europe with a rapidly evolving landscape in new innovations. We learned that health, sustainability, and diet variety are the main drivers for meat alternatives. Consumers are paying more attention to labels, so it's important to consider cleaner reformulation or differentiated ingredients. And we as Ingredion has proven success in a broad range of meat alternatives and plant-based ready meals to support food manufacturers to develop plant-based products with consumer-winning textures. So what's coming next? So today we just introduced you to a small part of what we can do as Ingredion in the plant-based area. But when you have any additional questions or are interested to work with us on your plant-based projects, feel free to contact us. And as I was just mentioning, use the contact us button below, or you can contact the persons here mentioned on the slide. So feel free to contact us, and we are looking forward to working with you on this exciting projects. What you can also do is downloading our Ingredion Plant Possible concept book, which you can also find below. And there you will find really interesting and inspiring recipes that you can try. One additional thing is that I would like to mention, and that you can look out for, is our new product, and it was mentioned several times during this webinar, our Vitasins texturized pulse protein range. So this will be available on pea and faba bean base. So this will be a new addition to our portfolio, and just look out for that. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. We are looking forward to work with you on your exciting projects on plant-based in the future. Thank you very much.